Hi, welcome to the press conference call for the November edition of the Philadelphia Fed's Business Outlook Survey, Manufacturing Business Outlook Survey. I'm Danielle Mazzone, Media Relations Representative at the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia, and I am joined by Senior Economic Analyst Mike Trebbing. Mike's going to start with a quick overview of this month's survey.
Good morning. Our regional manufacturing survey's broad diffusion indexes were all positive again this month and improved notably from readings in October. This suggests a pickup in growth this month. The surveyed manufacturing firms also continued to report increases in employment, and the survey's price indexes suggest some moderation in price pressures. Firms' expectations for the next 6 months remain overall optimistic, and firms are also more optimistic about adding to their payrolls over the next 6 to 12 months. And I'll point out that our supplemental questions this month focused on firms' employment expectations over the next year and the reasons for increases as well as the factors that are restraining employment.
So, Richard Long from Reuters, we'll start with you.
I want to get a sense from you why this sudden regional attributed to this sort of surge in the survey result this month. What are the primary things that you're seeing right now from respondents?
Right. So we had a consistent large increases in all of the broad indexes, shipments, activity, new orders. So it was consistent at least across all of the measures. We sometimes look at the comments about to give us some idea of the reasons for such an increase. I will say that there were more firms that were saying that the growth in business was better than it normally is this time of year. And of course, we do seasonally adjust the numbers, so we normally see a drift down in some of the numbers for November and December. So our factors that adjust, may have contributed a little bit to the jump, but generally the comments are consistent with kind of a broadening of both the industries and the number of firms that we're talking about growth. So I would make less hay about the large jump, but the fact that it's improved and still positive and are consistent with all the comments we're receiving, and also the little pickup in employment and the improvement in the forecast of employment too that we picked up a little bit more thoroughly this time in our special question.
As a follow-up, statistically speaking, I mean, is there any way that the index can sustain this level that was just recorded?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, when we see spikes like this, occasionally we'll smooth the data at the end of the year, and that will come in January. But we have had readings, in the past this high, but they haven't sustained themselves for very long. So keep in mind it's a diffusion index, and it's just giving us information on the share of firms experiencing increases versus those experiencing decline. So it doesn't say as much about the rate of growth as much as it does the expansiveness of firms reporting increases. So that's how I would interpret it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, Richard?
Just anything to elaborate on the special question that was asked about hiring and labor conditions.
Right. As I mentioned in the summary, we asked the question about what they were expecting to do with their employment levels over the next 12 months. So it's a little bit different than our 6-month question. And what we did notice, since we did do this same survey question over the last few years, that we've seen a nice pickup in the share of firms that are expecting to increase employment in that 12-month horizon. So since January of 2013, we've seen from about 34% now up to 56%. So I think it reflects the better condition of manufacturing in general. Mm-hmm. And like our past surveys, we know the expected sales growth is driving the plans for increased employment. We did notice that the question about the need for skills not possessed by current staffs, and the skill requirement was a little bit. It showed up as a higher ranked category than in the past, but as you might expect, the sales growth of the demand for goods is what's driving employment changes.
Right.
Yeah, we've already snapped that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anything else, Richard?
Nope. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
Okay, Beth Fitzgerald from NJ Biz.
Oh, okay. Mike, you need to really explain to me, because I don't understand it, why what it means that the diffusion index increased from 20.7 in October to 40.8 this month. Mm-hmm. That's a doubling, but what does that mean?
Right. The diffusion index is simply the difference between the share of firms reporting increases minus the share reporting decreases. So it tells us about the just as I said, it's the increased number of firms, if you will, that are reporting growth compared to the previous month. So on a seasonally adjusted basis, we had, for example, about a third of the firms reporting increases in activity last month, but closer to 50% this month. So, and also we had a decline in the share reporting decreases. So the combination of those two facts, contribute to this rise in the diffusion index. And we saw the same pattern of change for the question about new orders and shipments and employment as well. So it's all good news that we're seeing. We interpret it as a little bit of a pickup in growth, but more importantly, more firms that are experiencing growth than in the past. And as I mentioned, the comments earlier, where the firms are saying it's better than it normally is at this time of year.
So you're saying that growth is this is telling us that growth is basically improvement is more widespread.
That's right. Yeah. Right. That's a good way of interpreting the diffusion index, and a positive reading is we take to be on balance growth for the industry itself, and a higher number would suggest more firms experiencing growth or possibly it says less about, I think, the amount of growth, and then we look for comments to firms about what they're seeing in terms of demand and their own business, and few firms are mentioning declines now compared to 6 months or a year ago.
Okay. So basically, it suggests that the economic recovery, which has been going on for a long time, mm-hmm. this suggests that it's kind of broad, it's widespread. It's
for this manufacturing group, and we know that the manufacturing sector has been performing a little bit better than other sectors, and this is just suggesting that's continuing, and also the questions we ask about expectations. Those numbers are suggesting that people think that it's going to continue.
Okay. And what are your questions telling you about the impact of the Affordable Care Act?
Yeah, we did ask that question, how the firms had adjusted their overall staffing in response to ACA. The largest share, about 70% of the firms, indicated that they had really made no changes. However, around 11% indicated reduced full-time hiring, and about 5% increase in part-time hiring. And then you can see in the breakdown, the shares of the questions that we asked. The notable thing I thought was the reduction in full-time hiring of 11%, and about 8% of the firms had increased their use of contract workers. But the vast majority of firms indicated that no essential change in their overall staffing levels.
What does that tell you about how the ACA impacts decision making, or alternatively, what factors besides the ACA are really driving decision making on hiring? Yeah,
well, we wanted to just narrow our focus on ACA in that question. And we didn't ask about numbers. It was just the direction of change. I suppose you could say that the shares are for some of these categories are small, but I wouldn't say that 11% is small either. So it tells us less about numbers of employees as we do as it does the share of firms in this very small sample. And again, it's manufacturing sector. It's not covering service sector industries. Other thing I'll point out is that we also coordinated the question with the New York Fed. So the New York Fed had almost identical questions that they released last week, and the pattern was very, very similar. So you may want to take a look at their survey as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Beth. The next Manufacturing Business Outlook Survey will be released at 10 a.m. on December 18th.